Hey, what's up guys, it's the Active Gamer, and I'm back again with another story video. In this one I'm going to be talking about my experiences with Yellowstone, and I've only been there once, but my time there was pretty crazy, and wow, my team is being demolished right now. I don't know why it's being destroyed so badly, but we're just going to roll with it. But anyway, I've only been there once, but it was a really great experience, especially with wildlife and stuff. So yeah, that's what I'll be talking about. All right, so to begin with, I honestly don't remember that much from the trip because it was a couple years ago. Although I remember like the really big stuff, like really cool things that happened and stuff like that. But I remember I actually didn't want to go at first because we were camping just out. No, we were camping in like a campground inside the national park, but it didn't seem that interesting to me at first for some reason. But when I got there, I soon came to realize that Yellowstone is actually a really cool place. I really wanted to see the the geysers at first, and I didn't really care about the wildlife. So I was like, all right, we gotta go to the geysers. We gotta go. And it took us like 2 days to go to the geysers, I think, because we had the trip planned out. But we when we finally went to I forgot what it's called. It's something like Old Reliable or something. The most well-known geyser in Yellowstone. We waited there for like 10 minutes for it to go off, and I was like, wow, all right, I was very satisfied. I loved that. And then there was a whole bunch of other geysers around around that area. And I was going around, and it was really interesting. Like, I honestly found the other geysers to be more interesting than Old Reliable or whatever it's called. But then, as we were leaving, it was the perfect circumstances ever because we were already, in a good mood. Life was, pretty good. And then we were leaving, and it was around 4:15, and for some reason, my family was like, hey, let's wait until 4:20 to leave. So we're just waiting, and then right at 4:20, every single geyser goes off. And it's like, what it is, it's like Old Reliable goes off, then the one standing next to me goes off, and then there's one that goes off like once a day, and then there's one that goes off twice a day. And they're going off in like succession. So one goes off, then the next one goes off, then the next one goes off. And it was so cool. Oh, I just realized I was defending the wrong goal. We don't talk about it. Anyway. It was so cool because it was just awesome because I'm like, oh wow, Old Reliable's going off. Let's go. And it's at 4:20 that this is happening. So I check my phone and it's like, hey, 4:20. And then I see one that goes off, the one a day one. And it's like splashing a whole bunch of people. It was really close to like where you could see it. So I was even getting wet, and I was standing a while away from there. And it was like, wow, okay, that one's going off. And then one goes off far away, and then another one close. And it was just like perfect timing. 4:20, let's go. Then one of the coolest parts for me on the trip, and it was very obvious why it was the coolest part for me, was we were driving, I think, back to our campsite, and then we saw a whole bunch of people that were like stopped with a whole bunch of binoculars and stuff, and we didn't know what they were looking at, and they were looking at a dead carcass of like a wolf or a moose or something like that, and they were waiting for a bear to come and eat it. And we waited there for like 30 minutes and we didn't see anything. So my grandparents were like, all right, we're going back no matter what. We're just gonna go back. So they went back to the camping site, and we saw like a smaller group of people. It was only like 4 or 5 people on like a ledge, and they were looking at an area, but it had nothing in it. So we were like, let's go check this out because these people probably know what they're looking at. And we go down there, and they're like, oh yeah, there's a pack of wolves hiding. And we're like, what? How do you know that? And they're just like, it's just the right conditions and stuff. And I was like, wow, okay, that's kind of cool that you know that stuff. But this guy had a really powerful pair of binoculars, and he was, oh, what the heck? And he was looking at them. And we were all getting like a turn looking at the binoculars because they were just cool in itself. But then all of a sudden, when I look in there, I see this buffalo walking up, and he's like, oh, keep your eyes on there, keep your eyes on there. And I'm like, all right, I guess I will. And all of a sudden, the buffalo comes charging up to one lone wolf. It was just, looked like it was just one wolf. And then all of a sudden, the pack springs up, and there was like some vegetation, and they all like came out of like the vegetation area, and they all started like attacking the buffalo. So the buffalo ran away. It was like, oh crap, I need to get out of here. And of course, it was when I put my eyes on there, and it was like I was looking at them like I was like 20 feet away. I was so close, or it looked like I was so close because of how powerful they were. Another story that relates to the buffaloes was we were at, I forgot what it was, but it was another geyser spot where it wasn't like a erupting geyser. It was just kind of like a pouring out geyser. Like it was just one of those constantly erupting volcanoes in Hawaii. It looked like one of those things. But we were looking at that. We walked around. It was cool, and there was like a walkway you could go onto, and we went throughout the entire thing, and it was a really cool experience. But nothing too crazy. And then we got back, and we see this one buffalo on like the ridge, and he starts walking down into the parking lot. And there's these idiotic people that are messing with the buffalo, and they're like, making faces at it, making stupid noises and stuff. And I was like, bruh, what the crap are you doing? It's gonna attack you. And just after I said that, it attacked them, and it started charging after us, and there was this big crowd, and I was my family was pretty far away from the buffalo, but we just saw the crowd like falling over onto each other, and we run across the street. And like I was like pretty leisure because we were not dumb enough. We were smart enough to not mess with the buffalo. So we were like, all right, yeah, we're gonna stay back and just like admire it from a distance, as you should with all animals that are dangerous. But so I was just like leisurely going across the street, like, all right, yeah, I gotta get out of here. And then all of a sudden, my mom comes up from behind me and like grabs my arm, and I'm like, oh crap, because I thought it was like the buffalo that like grabbed me or something like that. So I was just like, oh my god, I'm going to die right now. But then I turn around, my mom's just like, so that kind of freaked me out. And then I hear my grandma over to my right, and she's running, and she's like cursing every single word you could think of imaginable. And just imagine like your grandma just like screaming like the F word and like stuff like that. It was really funny because I wasn't scared at all until my mom grabbed onto my arm, but the crowd in front of us sure was. And another story that happened when we were actually leaving from Yellowstone was we saw a whole bunch of news headlines that there was like fires in Wyoming, and we were like, oh well, that kind of sucks. But then we didn't realize it was right next to like Cheyenne. So we go for a restaurant stop, and we're at, I think, Subway, and there is the fire like 3 miles away from us, and it is a huge fire. Yeah, I saw smoke rising so far up in the air. There was a lot of it, and even when you went, like, it looked like a wasteland because there was no one outside. But then you went into Subway, and it was like, oh my god, I could see clearly now because there's no smoke, So it was really cool, but it was it hurt to breathe a little bit because there was a lot of smoke, and it was probably not that healthy for people to breathe that stuff in, because it was probably one of the biggest fires I've ever seen. And there's one more fire that was bigger than that, but it was up there. Sadly though, as we were there, we did not see any bears, which we were trying to see some bears there. That was one of the things that we wanted to see. Although we did see one later on in our life, which I might make a story time video about that. It was pretty cool. But all we saw was a whole bunch of buffalo, a whole bunch of wolves. Actually, not much wolves. It was just that one time, but at least we saw wolves because they were super cool. Although, one more story about buffalo before I go is there was a time that we stopped, and it was like the first time we were there, so not the first time, it was like the first day that we were there, so we hadn't seen much buffalo at this point. Although at the end of the trip, they seemed like there was like, you know, vegetation just everywhere. But it was one of the first times, and we saw a pack of them, and they were doing something, but it was something that interested us. So we were like, let's stop and watch them. And we were watching them for a little while, but then all of a sudden they started charging at our car, and like we were far away, so we could leisurely get in the car and not have anything to worry about. But when they started doing that, we were like, okay, we should probably go pretty fast, because it seemed like they did not care, because they saw us like a mile away, and they were just like, I'm coming, I'm going for them. So we just got in the car, and then we left. But then my grandpa, in the middle of the car ride, realized, oh crap, I left my hat on the roof of the car, and he really liked that hat. So we were like, oh my god, we need to get that hat. So luckily enough, it didn't fall off, but that was just another thing that made us realize not to mess with any buffaloes, because they can be scary as crap. Hey guys, that has been my Yellowstone stories. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one, and don't forget to like and subscribe.